Corruption doesn't just occur within the police force. The entire justice system is full of corrupted individuals who think they are above the law. Now, we don't often have stories of prison guards, although it's still far more than we have of firefighters and of paramedics, so it makes a nice change to the norm when I get to report on one, to show you that the rot seeps through the entire system. 25-year-old Emma Johnson from Derbyshire was a prison officer at HMP Sudbury when she fell for the obvious charms of convicted criminal Marcus Solomon, who was serving time at Sudbury. Johnson was found to not only have tipped off Solomon when there was going to be a cell search, but also partook in a little enterprising venture too of smuggling mobile phones into the prison on behalf of Solomon. Now, she was caught out when her number was found on another inmate's illegal mobile phone. Kate Temple-Mabe, prosecuting, said that Johnson of Merton Drive was employed as a senior prison officer at HMP Sudbury, where Solomon was then serving in the summer of 2020. She said the prisoner was moved from Derbyshire to HMP Ranby amid concerns that they were spending excessive amounts of time together. Miss Temple-Mabe said, "A phone was seized and on it was saved a number which was Miss Johnson's. She was arrested. Her phone was seized and there was excessive communication between her and Mr. Solomon, and it was evident there was a conspiracy between them and people unknown to convey mobile phones for Mr. Solomon to sell inside. Money was going into a bank account belonging to Miss Johnson, and there were messages in which she talked of buying and picking up 3 iPhone 5s and 2 iPhone 6s. There was one message about money going into her account in which she said, 'Okay, just let me know so I can move it into a different account.' In one of them she said to him, 'We are smashing it.' It is difficult to imagine a more fundamental breach of duty. Prison officers are tasked with maintaining order in prison. Bringing articles into prison is a serious breach of that responsibility." Both Johnson and Solomon didn't really have a leg to stand on, and so both conspirators pleaded guilty to conspiracy to convey mobile phones into prison, and Johnson also admitted a money laundering charge. Brett Weaver, her barrister, said, to a large extent she was blinded by what she believed was a genuine relationship with Mr. Solomon. She did not stop to think about the consequences. He added that his client is now with a new partner, has a baby and another child on the way early next year. Judge Bennett replied, "But there are other messages in June 2020 where she says to him, better get grafted and get them sold, and she was warning him about when there were going to be cell searches." Mr. Weaver replied, "Plainly it's two-way traffic. There was an element of burying her head in the sand. She lost her job, found work in a school and lost that job when she pleaded guilty to these charges. She now works selling cars, lives at home with her mother, who she describes as being distraught." Judge Jonathan Bennett said, "I accept you fell in love with your co-conspirator, but prison officers do their public service with pride, and when that trust is fundamentally abused like this, it is essential for those found guilty to receive a punishment to deter others." Emma Johnson was sentenced to 15 months in jail, whilst Marcus Solomon was sentenced to 13 months. So you see, crime doesn't pay. Even if you're already paying for a crime, committing another just isn't worth it. But I'd like to know what a 25-year-old is doing as a senior prison officer. Now, to give you another idea of why I've specifically brought up this about a prison guard, when people are allowed to get away with offences or go uncaught, things can steadily get worse, as in the offences can get worse and things can really get out of hand. Over in the United States, dozens of female inmates have claimed that they had been sexually assaulted in what they call a night of terror, after ex-corrections officer David Lowe is alleged to have sold jail keys to inmates at Clark County Jail. The number of women making claims is currently at 28, after Lowe is said to have sold the key to 2 male inmates at Clark County Jail in Jeffersonville, Indiana. A group of men reportedly got into the women's wing and assaulted, harassed and demanded oral sex from them. At least 2 of them were allegedly raped in a violent night, which went on uninterrupted for at least 2 hours before the emergency button was pressed and the men allegedly escaped prison with lots of cameras, and this went unchecked for some 2 hours, and even then the people that broke into the prison managed to escape. Come on, pull the other one. And there's only one way that could happen, and that's if the guards watching the cameras were in on it or they were away from their posts. And to be fair, my first thought is most likely, because it said that when the women raised the alarm about what had happened, the correction officers allegedly punished the women by leaving the lights on and removing their blankets. Lowe was arrested within 48 hours of reports emerging that he had sold a jail key to male inmates. He was charged with trafficking with an inmate and aiding escape and faces trial in November. But the mass sexual assault allegations only came to light in June this year, when 20 women filed a civil lawsuit against Lowe, other jail staff and Clark County Sheriff. The sheriff denies many of the accusations, saying the claims of rape were investigated internally and were not yet found to be true. He also denies responsibility for the unforeseeable criminal actions of a rogue corrections officer. Sickening and depraved actions by the corrections officer. But remember, just because it's happening over there doesn't mean it can't, won't, or isn't happening over here. As I say, when somebody goes unchecked and their behaviour will get worse, especially when money's involved, I can see something like that happening over here quite easily.